Yeah, you're all getting this now? Feeling good? All right, hi. Now that you can hear me, my name's Corey, as usual. Jay's over there running the stream. Lily's over there running cameras. I'm right here with my crap in front of me, as usual. It's a little bit different setup, though, than I normally bring. We're doing a lot of computer stuff lately, but you can make music without a computer if you want. So most of us who get into making electronic music tend to do it with computers because we have them. If we're lucky enough to have them, right? But typically in our day and age, folks have computers for other reasons, and being multi-purpose devices, you can make music on them too. And it's pretty convenient to just add music making capabilities to another tool you already have with software or whatever. But the computer is super cool and powerful and flexible, and as you've seen on the stream, you can do all kinds of stuff with it. But it's not. It's also its own source of complication and confusion and distraction. If I sit down on my computer to make music, I have the infinite sea of possibility of everything there, and also a web browser. So if I get bored, I can just flip open Reddit or something like that and forget what I was doing. Not that I have a terrible problem with that, but the computer can be kind of distracting, and then also it can be interfacing with musical instruments with a mouse and a computer keyboard is not always the most musical feeling thing. And so to that end, I've been trying to put together a sort of a live jamming setup that I can use to create music, or at least sketch out ideas and do a little bit of performing where my computer isn't involved. So if you watched our former stream about this subject, we had a guest on once, our friend Hudson, who brought his setup, which was very similar to this setup that I have here at this table, but very different too. So the things you're seeing, well, here's my drum machine. This thing is called the TR8S. Ooh, I'm hearing me on your mic now. That's exciting, even though it's not on the stream. So we have the TR8S here. This is Roland's current big old drum machine. Does a lot of stuff. I'll show you a little bit about it. And then I have a MIDI controller here, the Keystep 37 that my friend Alex recently sold to me, controlling my iPad running Tal LX, and also another synth I'll show you in a minute. And all of this is, so I guess down here on the floor, I'll try and bring it up in a way you can see it. I have a loop pedal as well, the Boomerang looper. This is a Huddy recommendation, and I've been trying to wrap my head around it. It's a very complicated device, but basically I can use it to capture and loop bits of audio. So my iPad is running into that, and then that is running back into the drum machine. Hey, there it is, looper and my pants leg. So this thing's pretty cool. Allows me to capture, hey, my Croc's making an appearance as well. Lets me capture up to 4 simultaneous loops and play them at once. And then all of this is synchronized as well. So the drum machine provides the master clock, which is synced with MIDI to my MIDI controller, which is playing the sounds on my iPad. So I get synchronized sounds from the controller, and then the controller's passing MIDI sync to the looper. So this allows me to fire off and loop loops that are synced in time to my drum machine. So it's really cool. So basically lets me just kind of freely make loops and mess around, sort of like what I do in software. So it's pretty fun and free and interesting. What do I want to show you first? Maybe let's talk about this synth, because I think this is really cool. So in my search to buy this stuff, I did a bunch of research, and I was looking all over for the right things. I knew I wanted a drum machine, I knew I wanted a polyphonic synthesizer, and I wanted a looper. And so I got this thing. This is actually the second one that I've had, because the first one came with a defective display. They got replaced, working great so far. I also bought a somewhat expensive sequential circuits synthesizer. It's called the Sequential Take 5. And that also came with a defective display. Unrelated. What a weird coincidence. And I didn't really get on with that thing. It was about, I got a really screaming deal on it. So I only paid $1,200 for it new, but normally they're more like 16. Maybe that's why I got a defective display. And it's like a pretty full-featured 5-voice polyphonic analog synthesizer. Reading all the spec sheets, it was like, man, this instrument is sweet. It does everything I want it to do. It has a cool sequencer, has nice ARPs, like super knobby hands-on controls, and like like analog oscillators that sound, you know. But I got it home and I just didn't really jive with it very much. Like I played it a bunch, and I didn't really feel like I was like connecting to the sound, which felt really weird. You know, I was like. It on paper was everything I wanted in a synth, and in practice didn't sound anything like the sound I imagined in my head. And so, yeah, I ended up just returning it because it was defective anyways. And instead of replacing it with something else, like another analog synth, I replaced it with this $12 app. This is Tal LX. This thing is super cool. So what this is a you can sort of see it here. So I apologize for the kind of like crummy interface aspect of this. There is a way to share a screen to a computer, but I couldn't do that and also route the audio the way I needed to. So whatever, here's the synth. I really like that reverb on there. Fun. Yeah, so what's going on with the synth? So this is a Juno emulation. So the Juno is a really popular, was Roland's like less expensive synthesizer back in the 80s. It's what's called a digitally controlled oscillators, so they tend to be a little more stable in tuning. But really, like it was a stripped down, like cheaper version of their big Jupiter synths, the Juno. It's a super straightforward instrument. It has one oscillator, has a high pass filter with no features except for one slider to control its cutoff frequency. There's a normal low pass filter, one envelope, not two. So it's only one envelope to control both, well, I shouldn't say both, either or the VCA, the amp, or the filter, and then a couple sweet sounding choruses and one LFO. And otherwise, that's all the sound generating stuff. So compared to other instruments that I've demoed on here before, this thing is super, super simple. But like the thing about it is it sounds awesome. And you know, this may not come across on the stream as being like the gorgeous sound that it is. Here, check it out by the way, without the chorus turned on. So here's no chorus. This is just the raw square wave. Kind of bland, huh? If we turn these choruses on, all of a sudden we have this like nice stereo image. And there's two of them. And you can turn them both on, and that's what I like. I just don't get sick of this sound. I can listen to this all day long. Sweet, I love it. So let me show you a couple features of this thing. Really super straightforward thing. So it's one oscillator, but it has these like multiple waveforms, so I can enable a square wave or a saw wave, which that sounds super cool through the chorus. Here's the square again, and the saw. You can enable them together too. Super thick. And then in addition to that, there's a sub oscillator that's also a square wave. So here's all of them running full blast. So I'm clipping your input there a little bit, Jay. Yeah, anyways, high pass filter, pretty straightforward. There's the full low end. So what I really love about this instrument though aside from all that stuff, I'm clipping something somewhere. Let me see what's happening. What's happening is I have multiple gain stages, right? So usually in Ableton, like I have these clear visual meters of like, oh, like this thing's hitting this thing too loud, and then this thing's hitting this next thing too loud. But here I don't have that at all. So like sound generation, this iPad runs into this pedal, which runs into the drum machine, which runs back to the mixer in Jay's space, and then back to me. So that's 1, 2, 3 places right away that I can easily clip my signal, send a too loud a signal. So that sound of like, there's a little bit of a crunchy distortion sound in there, and that's, I think I kind of mostly got it now. Anyways, that's what that was. So the thing I really love the most about this instrument is its filter. And in particular what it does when you have the envelope closing on it really fast. I don't know what it is, but I absolutely adore this sound. I could listen to this sort of thing all day long. I don't know why. There's just all sorts of weird things depending on how you set these things. So you'll notice I have some knobs controlling stuff. So let's talk about what's going on this thing. This is my MIDI controller, right? So you can just play this from the keyboard here, but playing keys on a flat panel of glass is a miserable experience. So physical keys. Rock. So this thing does a bunch of stuff, right? It's got like 3 octaves of notes, which is sweet. You see me engaging the arpeggiator. So this is like a group of notes I played earlier, but I can play any other. One thing that I really love about this instrument is that if you flip the top down again, you'll see that it actually lights up the notes in the sequence that are playing. I've never seen another keyboard that does this. Probably some of them do now. I don't know if your AV sync is very good or not, but it's showing you very clearly. I really like that about it. It's like very visual, clear what's happening on the instrument. Yeah, and so I have these 4 knobs here. You can do a couple different things with them. You can either use them in chord mode to like, I can play chords from these keys, which is like a really interesting feature. But you can also use them to control, to send what we call CC numbers to control other instruments. So right now I have these 2 knobs mapped to the filter cutoff and resonance, and then the attack and release of the envelope. You can actually get through multiple banks of these, but here's my least favorite thing about this instrument. To get through the banks, you can hold shift to select, and there's 4 banks here, but you have to cycle through them all. So if I'm in bank 2 and I want to go back to bank 1, I have to hold this button and go 1, 2, 3 to go backwards. I really wish that you could just, like here I can select my MIDI channel by like pressing the corresponding key with this number up here. I really wish there was a selector for that, but there's not. Oh well. So I've only mapped 1 bank, which is the first one. Make sure I'm on the right one. B1, the white bank, yeah. So you can see it controlling the knob and software. Sounds really nice with a little reverb too, eh? Yeah. And then, of course, the envelope. So I can make the filter open up real quick or close. Yeah. And then the last thing that's fun to mess with at least. Oh, hey, there's a noise oscillator too. You want a little like edge to it. The last thing that's kind of cool to show you on this synth before I move along. I really love the sound of the pulse width modulation, so we can enable that with this slider here. Creates this kind of like, it's like a phasing effect. So I'm not really crazy about these little mini keys. I generally don't like mini keys, but I took this thing for its features. It's already kind of cramping my style. I got, like, if you see how big my finger is, like, you press all three of those keys at once with a very little effort. So it's not my ultimate like keyboard instrument, but I'm not really a keyboard player anyway, so I'm mostly using this as a note entry device. Yeah, so here's my synth, right? It's polyphonic, so if I want to play something monophonic, I just got to be mindful of not playing more than one note at a time, you know. But I can use it. It does bass sounds just fine. You know. Ooh, that's nice. Cool. Fun. All right, yeah. That's that synth. So it's nice, like, if I want to play bass lines, just do it. If I want to switch to playing chords, I don't have to do anything. Just do it, you know. Obviously, that's the sound that works good for bass and the sound that works good for chords isn't necessarily going to be the same thing. So to that end, I'm actually running two synths over here. I have the Moog Model D over here as well. This one, I've gotten less into programming. Although it's certainly something I'm like maybe more familiar with. This is the classic Mini Moog layout. This is a 3 oscillator synth with noise oscillator and some other features. This one I guess has still one envelope for everything. So it generates a more complex sound, but ultimately the performance kind of controls are about the same. I have not mapped this one as deep yet because I'm like focused on like really trying to like get to know the other one better. But this thing, I just, oh yeah. I'm still playing the other synth though. So this is the cool thing about this setup. So I can have these both running, and regardless of which one's like on my screen right now, I can choose which one I play. So it's like I have them both, and I can only just see one at a time, which is kind of like how looking at stuff works. So, so if I hold Shift, I can select my MIDI channel. So real quick, so I'm sending MIDI information all around. MIDI transmits all sorts of different messages, but one thing that's really cool about it is that it transmits those messages on distinct channels. So there's 16 different channels that you can transmit messages on. So you can, and these will like pass through, so like this thing's sending MIDI to here, but I could like pass that through anywhere else and I could pass things along. So say if this thing was gonna listen to one of the channels, I could send a message on a different channel and it would pass through to wherever its destination was and then play that instrument there. So, I have this thing set up on MIDI channel 2. My other instrument is on MIDI channel 1. So if I switch, oh no, I'm sorry, it's the reverse. This one's on 1, the other one's on 2. So switching, here's the Moog. So there we go. I'm just obsessed with this preset. It's called Craft Bass. Just saw that like gooey rubber band kind of sound. I really like that a lot. I don't really want to like get like too nerdy about like how to use this thing. I'm really just using it as a preset player right now. You can scroll through presets over here. So I can like run the arpeggio and switch between sounds. You get all kinds of weird stuff in here. But I just really like that sound a lot. Yeah, cool. So anyways, So the thing is sweet. So like if I can like have that, I can't run this sequence and then switch to the other instrument. If I try to do that, plays the other one instead. So there's one limitation of this setup is that I can't like run an arpeggio on one channel and then play over it on a different channel. I can do that with a sequence, but not an arpeggio. And since this thing also has a sequencer, so I can like tell it what like the pattern I want to play, and it will play that pattern. And then I can play over that on a different channel with a different instrument. But I'm improvising right now, so I don't have any patterns that I want to play for you. Maybe I'll make one. Cool, great. Let's talk about the drum machine. This thing's really complicated. So TR-8S. I got this thing because it does like everything that I wanted to do. I really wanted something that was focused on kind of classic dance music sounds, and this thing does that. It has all of the sounds of the classic 80s drum machines, and as an extra bonus, they're not sampled, they're modeled. And the models sound pretty good. I can basically just run, it's like having all of the old Roland drum machines in one unit, plus a bunch of samples. Plus, they keep adding these new FM models, so these like instruments that are baked in here that I've had a lot of fun messing with. I haven't done a lot of like what they call like Zox style like sequencing here before. So let's talk about that real quick. I'll just like whip up a little pattern here, and we'll get a little jam going. Let's hang out at like 128. This is like I should probably clear this loop I have now, just in case it plays it, because it won't be in sync anymore. Yeah, house music tempo, 128. So the way this thing works is we start here. We have individual volume faders for all of our 11 possible sounds that we can run at once, which is pretty sweet. So the way it works is select an instrument, and then we're presented with our 16 steps of our sequence. And we can have up to 8 16-step sequences, and you can play them all in a chain. So you can have a sequence that's 128 steps long if you feel like it. Is that the right number? No, 96 steps. But I haven't really gotten that far into it. So one thing I'm just going to do is I can hear that Jay is talking, but he's not talking to me. I'm just going to quick program in like a kick drum on the beat, and we'll just turn this up and see what it sounds like. I don't know. I pulled up a random blank kit, so I actually don't know what sounds are in here right now. So we'll just take a listen. Let's stop that from happening though. One thing about the setup also is that these things are synchronized. So when I press play in here, it's going to start my sequence. I don't want that to happen. Well, I don't want to hear it right now, so I'm going to turn the input off. Here's the sound of the drum machine. Cool, so that sounds kind of like a normal like 808 sort of sounding kit. Let's switch instruments. So I can press this instrument button, and here I am, the selector. Let's try this 909 attack bass. So you can see that this little letter P here indicates that these are not samples. They are, I don't know why it says P. I'm not sure what that's supposed to indicate. PF means that they're FM models. There's some samples later. I'm less interested in that though. Let's get out this 909 attack bass. This is fun. So here I have controls for pitch and decay. And then this third knob is assignable with this button. So I press this button, I can choose what this thing does. So I'd like it to control, I don't know, what do I want to do? I like that on attack actually. You can kind of change that little initial click, kind of take it away. So you can like add some intensity to this thing over time. Cool. Let's make a little basic pattern here. We're gonna add some offbeat hi-hats, and like let's find a good instrument for that too. I don't like the 808 much for this. That's the kind of classic sound, right? I'm kind of fond of these 606 hats though. So these all come pre-baked with like a different like mapping of this third thing. So this one's got a filter on it. Let's pick out the corresponding closed hats for this. Cool. So on and so forth. So you can do all sorts of weird stuff here too. Like we can add like effects to these things pretty easily. There's all sorts of like weird features in here. I don't really feel like I need to like demo a ton of them. I'll just like come across them as we go. Here I got a little clap program already. Oh, cool. This I haven't found this. This is kind of like one of those like DJ style like single knob filters. Fun. So like in addition to this, like I can move into like an instrument play mode. So like if I'm here and I don't want to sequence something, I can just play it. And if I want to, I can like do a little fade up with that like roll. I don't know when you'd want to do that. You pull them both to get 16th notes. And then these buttons give you these extra weird sounds. Yeah, you play your fills. There's like scatter controls, which is weird stuff. Again, I'm kind of new to this machine, so let's program some like extra stuff here. Get back to instrument rec, or sorry, get back to TR rec. This is like the mode that makes more sense, the sequencing mode. I'm gonna add some reverb to that snare. Take it away from everything else. Reverb sounds a little crazy. There's also a delay effect in here. You know, I love that sound of that adjusting the delay time on the fly. But anyways, boom, here we have like a pattern already, which is kind of fun. So, my art's going too. Let's record a loop of that. So I'm gonna pull out this looper and see if I can make this work right. I've been having some bad luck. Well, who's that in the chat there? So cool. So now I've got this bass line is running as a loop now, as an audio loop from my looper, and it's totally synced to this drum machine. Something that I found out earlier. I thought it might be. Hi, Aaron. Something that I didn't realize is that I kind of assumed that this thing would clock the pedal right out the gate, and it's sending start-stop messages just fine. But it's not, I realized earlier, if I change the tempo here, the loop doesn't change its tempo correspondingly, you know? There may be a setting where I can make it do that, but I haven't found it yet. So you just gotta be careful to stay at the same tempo while we're jamming here. So the cool thing about that is like now I can like switch over and like have, that was the sequence running on the other instrument. It's being a little grumpy there for a second. Didn't seem like it wanted to like launch that loop when I wanted it to. But again, I'm still learning about this whole thing. So I can do fun stuff like stop the bass line. And like this thing's also playing as a loop, so like if I want to like play over this, I can, which is fun. Trying to start that in like a synchronized way, and it's not really working out either. So there seems to be something about like the loop length here that like I have to be mindful. Like even though like what happened is even though I recorded like kind of a long loop or it's a short pattern, I recorded around a few times. It's interesting where that is in the loop it starts. So even though that's like it's a short pattern, I recorded kind of a long time of it. So when I'm trying to sync stuff, it's waiting until the end of the loop to do its sync thing. And so it's hard for me to time. So I can flip this guy back over here, flip this guy. Anyways, Jamorama, hey. So getting this thing to feel compositional is kind of a big challenge, right? And it really comes down to me like knowing my tools well. There's so many things I can do at any one time, right? And being that it's all kind of like on the fly, I can't really like, when you're performing and it's everything that you're doing is audible, I can't like sit down and make a composition decision because it has to happen in the flow of things. So like when you like screw up and like fail to trigger a loop on time or something like that, or it like doesn't come in when you meant to, it kind of like can mess with the flow pretty bad. Even though I'm just like working, this thing's just running a 1-bar loop, and I have like some like the bass line's a 1-bar loop, the chord progression is only 2 bars, you know. So it's like very, very loopy, and it's not a big deal if I like trigger stuff like every bar or whatever, but I'm still hearing things in these like longer groups of like 8 or 16 bars, you know, and so like I want to create like motion or some sort of occurrence at those times. And like likewise, I want to like drop stuff in or like cut stuff out like at those times as well. And so if it doesn't work out, like I was trying to bring that bass line back in, and like it came like several bars later than I was expecting, and that really cramped my style a little bit. So just having an awareness of how all those like loop lengths and everything is going to interact, which again, this system is pretty new to me, so I'm just kind of scratching the surface of it at the moment. It's going to be really important to like figuring out your whole thing. Part of the whole complication of this is just getting it to speak to each other like correctly. And I didn't really like talk too much about my like setup of that, but like there's a real like rat's nest of cabling up here. Just like the MIDI controller alone has 4 cables running into it, 6 into the in and out of the drum machine. The iPad has a crazy thing going on where I've got this like USB hub. So iPads, if you want to connect external gear to them, any kind, if it can't be powered by the camera connection kit, then you need some sort of external power source. So typically for music purposes, that looks like a powered USB hub, since we'll use multiple devices that want to connect all together. This thing at home, when I plug it in, I have it connected to a second synth, that little Micro Freak keyboard that I brought in before, which is cool because if I have 2 keyboards, I can play both of those synths at the same time, one on each MIDI channel. Pretty sweet. And then I also will have an audio interface connected to this thing too. I'm doing a very simple setup here, just out the headphone jack, which works fine, but the audio interface gives you a little extra flexibility, and it's I can leave it all set up, and it's one less cable for me to plug and unplug when I plug it in, which is like pretty cool. I really would like the setup to exist permanently on my desk at all times, so I can just walk over, flip the power strip on, and everything turns on, and I'm ready to play. I like that a lot. Generally speaking, I think that setting up gear is a deterrent to actually using it. Personally, I find that if I have to halt things out and set things up, it can sometimes really kill my inspiration or motivation. So I try to avoid that as much as I can. But yeah, so the powered hub powers all that stuff, the 2 keyboards and the audio interface, and then also it has a charging port, so it's kind of like, it looks like a funny loop, but the iPad is charging itself from its own hub, but it works with this little dongle that splits my Lightning port into a charging port and USB. All working great. Pretty cheap, those 2 things combined, I think were maybe $30. And not nothing, but now I can run anything I want to run into my iPad, and it's sweet. These apps are really small. This thing I think is 15 megabytes. This one is the smallest app I own, and it's the best sounding one too, which is cool. Yowzer. Okay. So let me show you a little bit about how to add some extra stuff to this. So things I've been doing. Make sure that thing doesn't. Let's stop these guys. So I've been doing some stuff assigning things to the reverb more. And since this isn't a computer, normally there'd be a submenu for that kind of stuff or whatever. But here, everything on these hardware devices is accomplished with combination button presses. Takes a lot of getting used to, a lot of manual reading. But luckily the interface here is pretty intuitive. So to assign some things to the reverb, I hold its instrument button. So say I want to I'll adjust the clap level here. So if I turn up the reverb, that's actually just the tail of that sample. A little more of a dry version of it. So I can assign this to the reverb. So I'll have the reverb level is cranked up all the way, but this isn't going to it at all. I can change its send level though by holding this button and turning this knob. And then I can release it and adjust the overall reverb level. So it's really handy. It's super fast to assign things to these different effects. There's also a delay effect too. Not assigned to that at all yet. And it's showing me the values over here. Dotted eighths is generally a good option. So hey, the snares in the reverb, I don't like that. So being really particular about which instruments go where is really helpful. Oh yeah, so I was talking about like creating motion and like making things change and stuff. Let's do that a couple different ways. One thing I can do really quickly is I can copy pattern A to B, and then if I press these two buttons, they'll both play. So here now it's playing pattern A and pattern B, and switching back and forth. So let's like change one of them. So if I want to choose, like this was confusing to me, but if I want to choose which one I'm selecting, if I press B, it's just going to start looping B. And then if I want it to do both again, I have to press both again. So I figured out that by reading the manual, if you hold this TR rec button, you can choose which one you're focusing on without changing the selection of overall patterns being played. So if you change the second pattern somehow, you got a longer pattern. Yeah, so I'm not really using like, you see I'm only using like 5 of the 11 voices. Let's bring some of these other ones out. You want to hear some of the weird sounds in here? They're super bizarre, a lot of them. They're fun. Let's put a little, I'm all about this. Oh, interesting. Oh yeah, right, I'm on pattern B. So I got to edit both patterns. I don't know if there's a quick way to copy the stuff on one instrument from one pattern to another. Haven't figured that out yet. This sounds kind of cool, but let's just see what else we got. This is a weird one. So this is one of the sampled sounds. Whoa, excuse me. Hit that button with my foot. This is one of the sampled sounds. So we can like choose the sort of things that happen to it here. There's so many options on these samples. So these, like you can see this giant menu of things, right? This thing gets super menu divey, which I was a little disappointed to discover. I'm not crazy about all these like menus. I do like all these features, but it's just not my favorite. I don't really like looking through all this stuff. But the end result is like I can like, it doesn't take long for me to like get to a sound that's like interesting to me. That's super weird, right? Sounds like 2-shell again. Always sounds like 2-shell. So now like I feel like that clap's a little cheesy. What if we like anticipated that note a bit? Fun. Also nice to add a little bit of swing to this. This is something that like on a lot of tools is like a single knob, like there's a dedicated knob for that here. In Ableton, to apply swing to your stuff is so tedious. Like you like go to this menu, you drag things around, you like, and then like you reassign it to everything. Unfortunately, I've yet to figure out how to get this swing to translate to this thing. So this thing is still going to spit out a straight pattern, even regardless of where I put the shuffle. I think I can set it differently to get it to sync to like to eighth notes instead of quarter notes, but we have to solve that one. So if I want to if I go to try to play like some kind of sequence over here, let's get a snappy sound here. Weird. Huh. This is a very strange behavior over here. That's what I was expecting. So I don't know if you can tell, like, this is totally straight. It doesn't have that same kind of like funk to it that this open hats or the closed hats do right now. So I can. This thing has very limited swing capabilities, but you can do it. It has like these fixed options for swing percentages that I select with the shift button. Can you hear the difference? You're straight. And 54% swing. You hear that? So every other note is a little delayed. So instead of like it's like here. I'll dial up a higher percentage. So here's the maximum swing percentage, or I'll walk through them. So here's off. 52, 54, 57, 60. That should be pretty obvious now. You have this kind of like shuffling, skipping thing. Goes all the way up to 75. I can't really imagine when you'd ever want that. 63 feels pretty extreme to me. 75, they're practically delayed to the next note. I don't want that. So I think this is maybe closer. It's got that funk to it now. Did you notice that was a little funny sounding at first? I've noticed that this thing sometimes seems to get confused about whether I'm trying to play the first or the down note or the swung note, and so sometimes it reverses the swing and like still trying to figure that one out. Like right there. Like that's not right at all. That's right. So yeah, so that's the still one I haven't really quite figured out what that's about yet. Chat me if you know. I'll try and solve that one later. But yeah, so like I've found that I have to set the shuffle manually on this thing to like match it, and that's been a real like tedium to my workflow. But you know, getting somewhere slowly but surely. still have those loops saved. And I haven't changed my tempo. Didn't even get into the master effects yet. That's pretty fun. I don't know if you noticed, but my loops are running through here too. So that's like one of the cool things about this setup this way, where like all of my, everything runs through here. So I'm actually just sending stereo out of this, and everything is, this is like my master brain of the operations, you know? So I can run different effects over here and like apply them to everything, switch types over here. There's a pretty cool, well, that was interesting. So these all have like deeper controls that you can get into if you want. Control band. Oh my god! Like there's like 7 options for this one effect. Let's see what it sounds like if we do something. Or we can change what the knob does. So one last thing, I can record that. I can record anything too. It can get like super wacky really fast. Anyways, I think we're getting close to our time here. So I don't want to blab too much more. But yeah, this is like really like the sort of stripped down, like kind of bare minimum sort of thing that I would feel like I would need to like sort of do something that feels performy. Obviously, like I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like a person who's like picked up a new instrument for the first time. You know, like it reminds me of like the feeling of like playing like I don't know, like a clarinet or something like that, or saxophone. Like I don't know what I'm doing. You know, or just like something like that where it's like I have a musical idea and I don't know how to execute it. I sort of have an idea, and the cool thing about this stuff is that it like leads you to places that I wasn't planning on going. But at the same time, it's like, oh, like how do I make the music in my head come out of this thing? That's the longer sort of longer term sort of thing I got to figure out. It's going to be a lot of like making simple chord progression loops and practicing messing with them. The more instruments I have too, the more like varied the performance can be too. So like at home, I've got another synth that has some effects hooked up to it too. And so I can like mix and match between all those things, and they're all running through a mixer there. so I can then like also change levels independently of this whole thing. So I have a lot more control there. And I've had some pretty good luck like getting something going over here and then like, start a pattern going on that other synth. You can fade other things out, keep that pattern going, like start something new over here and bring it in. And then like we're like, starts to be more like DJing, Jay, but not that. So to be clear, this is what we call like a live PA or like a live hardware performance setup, where everything is, anything that I bring to this is either saved to these units. I can save patterns here. I can save some sequences in here, but I can't, that's it. I could save some loops in my looper, but that's not, just a couple, I think. Actually, I think they probably, I don't know if they stay in memory when you power it down even. So I'm like really like, it's like some drum patterns and then whatever I bring to the table with the keyboard. And the looper. This is pretty cool. Very freeing, very flexible and improvisatory with all of the benefits and drawbacks of that. Yeah, so I believe we're about to go off the air. So I'll just say thanks for tuning in and hanging out. We'll see you next time.